I just finished watching the Resident Evil Netflix show, and, you know, I've recorded myself for about half an hour talking about the show only to realize it was just a black screen, and now the realization that I have to talk about it for potentially another half an hour, if not more, it does something to you. Right, so welcome. Welcome to, a... How's it going, people? Welcome to a review, I guess, of the Netflix Resident Evil show, which came out not even a week ago. So the way I'm gonna be doing this is we'll have a spoiler-free half at the beginning, and afterwards we'll get into all of the spoilers that we can talk about. You should be able to see on the screen right now how long the spoiler-free half is gonna last, and then when we get into the spoiler territory, we're gonna have another warning just in case. I mean, honestly, I don't even know how many of you really care about spoilers with a show like this, but... So, let's talk about the premise of the show first, right? The show revolves around Albert Wesker and his daughters Billy and Jade Wesker moving into a new Raccoon City to start anew together. And that's pretty much all we know going into the show. But then when you watch the trailer, you know that there's gonna be an outbreak that's gonna happen. So the show is split into two timelines, 2022 and 2036. I'm just gonna start off by saying pretty much all of 2036 is a fucking mistake and I wish it didn't exist. So the 2022 bit is really where all of the slow burn kind of build-up happens, and then in 2036 is where most of the action and the monsters really show up. We have more characters in the past, in 2022, than we do in 2036. We have the entire Wesker family, and then some other characters like the CEO of Umbrella, Evelyn, among other characters. So before going into the show, I read a few articles about it, and from what I gathered before going into it is that the games are canon to the show, but not the other way around. So the show itself isn't canon, but the events of the games did happen in this show's universe. And one of the main questions you might have going into this is, how is Albert Wesker alive? And obviously that's gonna be one of the bigger twists that you end up learning about. Okay, let's talk about my expectations going into this. Honestly, my expectations were below the ground. Like, just hearing about the show before it ever came out, like months before it came out, I knew it was gonna be a shit show, and it kinda is. Like, generally speaking, whenever I play something, watch something, my expectations, I try to always set them at the bare minimum so that I do still get some enjoyment out of it. And honestly, I'm probably going to be one of the more positive people that you hear talking about the show, because believe it or not, I did enjoy a thing or two about it, but, you know, it's just a thing or two, so... take that for what it's worth. One of the things that there was a lot of noise about before the show came out is Albert Wesker himself. About how the character that was, you know, chosen to act him looks nothing like him. I can understand the frustration in that regard, because this is, like, to me at least, the problem is you have an established iconic villain that a lot of people know, and they know him to look one way, but to bring him looking very differently can cause some problems. So when people are upset about that, it does make sense to me. But for what it's worth, guess what? I actually kind of liked Lance Reddick as Wesker. I think he was absolutely the best part about the show. He carried the show. But, you know, I say that, but, like, the show didn't really have much to offer to begin with. So let me give you my general rating or thoughts about this. So when it comes to stuff like the story, it's unfortunately an absolute hot pile of dog shit. And from what I read in an article, 6 out of 7 screenwriters for this show have never done any big projects before, which, again, like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Like, Resident Evil is supposed to be one of the most recognizable franchises out there, and you hand it to people that didn't really work on anything? It doesn't... That doesn't sound like a good idea. And I mean, look at what we got with the show. The characters, well, we have a bunch of new characters, and honestly, I couldn't really care for most of them. The show didn't do a good job for making me care for them. And then we have the CGI, right? The monsters, the effects, and all of that. So, the CGI was probably one of the better things about the show, although there is still some questionable stuff like the zombie makeup. Sometimes you look at the zombies and it just doesn't feel like there's enough makeup. Like, there's a scene or two where you'll probably be confused. Am I looking at humans or zombies? That kind of thing. And as for the twists, don't worry, again, we're still in the spoiler-free half. I'm just gonna talk about the twists, generally speaking. A lot of the twists you either see coming, or when they happen, you don't say. I don't give a shit. So yeah, generally speaking, if you're a Resident Evil fan, chances are you're gonna fucking hate the guts of this show. But you might enjoy a thing or two like I did. Lance Reddick as Wesker was, again, like, it was something that I did enjoy about the show. And if you know nothing about Resident Evil, or if you have a very basic background, then you might get an average enjoyment out of it as well. If you want to watch it, go ahead. Okay, with that being said, this is the end of the spoiler-free half, and now we're gonna get into the spoiler territory. So if you want to watch the show, or if you care about spoilers and you don't want to ruin anything for yourself, then now is the time to close the video. Right, so the spoiler half. We talked about expectations, and again, the reality was pretty much what I expected. It was a complete shit show. There was a few highlights in the show. That's really about it. I was cautiously optimistic about the choice for Wesker, but again, Albert Wesker himself was pretty good in my opinion. Everyone else, though, couldn't really give a shit, right? So the monsters, we have a zombie dog. I think we have one of them. And the effects for the dog are actually pretty good. Much better than what we've seen in Welcome to Raccoon City, where that dog looked on the cheap side. And then we have a liquor scene, right? There's a bunch of liquors, actually. And they look good compared to the liquors... sorry, liquor. There was only one liquor in Welcome to Raccoon City. They look good compared to... I mean... To be fair, the liquor in Welcome to Raccoon City was decent. I thought it looked okay. But the ones in the show are kinda better. And then there was also one giant spider. And you get to see like a cool death scene with the spider as well. And then there is also the... I guess it's the Gravedigger, but I don't know if it's really the same. The Gravedigger, I mean, it was okay, I guess. Like, I say this with a... like bored kind of tone, because like the scene with the Gravedigger was just so boring to me, because he grabs Jade, fucking like slams her onto the ground, and then guess what? He stands there smelling her for like half a minute until a bunch of guys arrive and kill the thing. Like, that's one problem with the show, right? I feel like a lot of instances monsters could definitely go and kill more people, but they're just standing there for plot armor reasons, I guess. And then you also have the Tyrant, which they only show in like the last episode, and they hype him up to be like, oh shit, dude, the fucking Tyrant is gonna wreak havoc. But really, what happens is, like, they tease you by showing you, oh, he's gonna break out of the tube. And what happens is, the Umbrella building explodes, and then you see him under the rubble while, you know, the firefighters are trying to put out the fire and save people. And it's the kind of situation where you're like, okay, he's gonna get out and kill people. But they don't show you even that. So I guess they're trying to set up for season 2, where probably in the beginning you'll see him killing people, which is like the absolute fucking confidence you gotta have to expect for this to have a season 2. Fuck, holy shit, dude. And that's another thing, right? Like, there's already an article or two that talk about how this is gonna get a season 2, and again, like, good luck with that. Also, one monster that we gotta talk about, which was fucking hilarious, because, again, I saw an article, like, just titled something like, oh, an iconic monster is coming back in the show. And then that monster was Dr. Salvador, right? There was a screenshot that I saw and everything. And then, in the actual show, you get to see Dr. Salvador, like, chopping up a guy. And then there's this prison sequence where Jade and some other Umbrella guy with her are breaking out. And then there's a scene where this Dr. Salvador dude is approaching Jade. And he fucking goes down in one headshot. Dude, the fucking wasted potential in this show, like, holy shit, there's so many of them. Just think about that for a second. Like, you see an article hyping up a returning enemy, and then when you get to the show, he dies in fucking seconds. Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? Also, one random weird thing, but The fact that they refer to zombies as zeros, what's up with that? I don't think they ever explained that. Just call them zombies. That's what they call them in the fucking games. I don't get what they're trying to accomplish here. Okay, well, with the CGI, I guess, out of the way, I meant to talk about the story. So the story, as you know, is split in two. There's a half in 2022, and there's a half in 2036 in the future. So, I said this in the beginning, but the future half is absolute fucking trash. It's a mistake. A lot of it is boring and just jarring. You could remove that from the show and have the entire show just revolving around 2022. And honestly, it would probably be slightly better. God, if I had a fucking dollar for every time Jade in 2036 survived a hit that should have killed her, oh boy. I mean, okay, maybe you'll tell me, oh, but Leon, she's a Wesker. Dude, have you seen the fucking blows that she's taken? One scene, she jumps off from like a height that should probably cripple any person, and guess what? She's fine. The Gravedigger grabs her by the leg, slams her onto the ground. Well, not the ground, a car, still. She's fine. And then there's a scene in a fucking... like shut off basement room where grenades like set off and then she's blown away by the explosion. And guess what? She's fine. I wouldn't have as much of a problem with this if this was Ash from Evil Dead, but this is not that. So honestly, at some points I was rooting for Jade to just fucking die already. Because again, she was one of those characters that I just couldn't care for. And the same goes for her sister, Billy Wesker. I feel like they want you to care about these two, the daughters, but all that ended up happening is me just not giving a single shit about them. All I found them was to be annoying, to be fucking just dumb and not likable. And I don't know, maybe one of you is gonna say, oh, but maybe you're not supposed to like them in 2022 because they're only 14. But yeah, guess what? That doesn't make me like them any less. And hell, even in the future, in 2036, when they're all grown up, they're even more obnoxious than in 2022. God, the sheer stupidity of Jade in that ship scene where she brings a zombie to test on and all that happens is she gets someone killed. My goodness, dude. Also, can we talk about how stupid it is that the zombie outbreak pretty much starts, I guess? Well, maybe not the zombie outbreak, that would be wrong to say. Because they never even show us how the fucking zombie outbreak starts. Again, it's probably one of those things that they're saving for season 2. I don't know how they're so fucking confident about it. Let me rephrase. The whole fucking shit show starts because Billy and Jade break into an umbrella facility because Billy saw that they test on animals and she's like, oh no, that's cruel. So she breaks in. All that happens is she gets herself bit by a fucking zombie dog, and then nothing is the same ever again. Also, can we talk about how fucking insane it is that the Umbrella facility had no guards? So, when Billy and Jade break into Umbrella to help the animals, the alarm goes off, right? And the alarm goes for like 10 minutes, if not more. And only then someone arrives. Like, if you know anything about Umbrella from the games, if an alarm goes off at an Umbrella facility, there is going to be fucking guards and special forces just surrounding the whole place in probably a minute. So, like, it's so hard to care for a lot of the show when they don't really know how the fucking stuff works. So, let's talk about the characters a bit, right? So, again, Billy, Jade, couldn't give a shit about them. Albert Wesker is actually kind of cool. I like Wesker in the show. And then who do you have? You have I guess evil Umbrella operative. I forgot his name. He only shows up in the future, but I actually kind of liked him. So I think I talked about the prison sequence earlier. Jade and this guy are locked up together and they have to break out. And while they're fighting their way out, you have this fucking incredibly fucking like over-the-top scene with this dude, who's a chubby man, by the way. You wouldn't expect him to put up as much of a fight as he did, but that was kind of cool. Like, this dude just goes fucking guns blasting, breaking necks, breaking arms, all by himself. But guess what? Because of fucking Jade, he ends up dying, so Good job taking away one of the few characters that I kind of cared about. Right, so, another hot topic in the community is that there's a few references people aren't fond of, like the Zootopia porn thing. Like, man, honestly, I kind of wish that was the worst thing. Right in the first few minutes of the show, they mention Elon Musk for some reason. And then later on, Evelyn talks about, like, conspiracy theorists, and she's like, oh, the only people that believe, like, the umbrella conspiracy theories are conspiracy theorists and 4chan virgins, or both. And it's just like, dude, fucking please. God, the amount of things in this... you know, while recording this, I'm just taking the time to think about a lot of things when it comes to the show, and really think about where I am right now after watching the show. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about Evelyn for a bit. So Evelyn Marcus, she's the CEO of Umbrella in this show, right? And my god, she has to be the most idiotic, irritable, insufferable Umbrella CEO that I've ever seen in my Resident Evil fan life, I guess. She is so incompetent as an Umbrella CEO, it's not even funny. There's a scene, right, where, so, one thing about the show is that Albert Wesker is, like, working on a drug, right, called Joy. Now, Joy is some kind of antidepressant that lowers anxiety, stress, depression, that kind of thing, and it makes you happier. But there's one problem with it, which is it has a derivative of the T-virus for some fucking reason. And Evelyn is putting pressure on Wesker to release this drug onto the markets as soon as possible. And guess fucking what? Albert Wesker is the one that lectures this Umbrella CEO about how, what, you want to release this drug for money and risk, like, billions of lives? Like, oh my god, okay, well... And if you watch the show and you're watching this, I know you're gonna say, oh, but that wasn't Wesker. That was a clone of Wesker. And that's another thing that we were gonna talk about. So, remember how we were saying, like, one of the things you wonder going into the show is, how is Albert Wesker alive? Well, guess what? They pulled the clones card. And you know what? The clones are actually one of the better things about the show, funnily enough. Because at the very least, I found them to be funny. So we have the original Albert Wesker, which you can see somewhere on the screen. Badass, right? That totally is not Blade. And then you have 3 clones of the original Albert Wesker. So we have the family man Wesker that we know. I think he's just called Albert as well. And then you have Albie, and then you have Bert. Unfortunately, Albie dies, but then we have Bert and the family man Albert, which we see more of with the show. Can I just fucking say how precious Bert is? My god, he's one of the characters that I loved in this show. He's that wholesome uncle who always has a smile for his family. Man, like, if you end up watching the show, just fucking... look at Bert, okay? Bert must be protected at all costs. Holy shit, I love him. So yeah, the clone twist. I mean, I couldn't really think of many other ways for them to say, yo, Wesker is still alive, other than this. And, I mean, I don't know what to say about it, honestly. Because again, the clone thing, probably one of the better bits, believe it or not. And that's, like, saying something, because that probably just means... No, that does mean, like, the rest of the show was just absolute dog shit. That something like this is, kinda on the bright side, you know what I mean? Let's talk about the ending for a bit. So the ending, what happens is, the family man, Albert Wesker, the parent of Billy and Jade, sacrifices himself for his 2 daughters and their uncle, Bert, to all get away together. And when they all get away together, one of the daughters has, like, this piece of paper that has an address on it. And guess what it fucking says? On the top, it says Ada Wong. I have no fucking idea how they have this overboosted confidence that a season 2 is gonna happen and it's gonna go well after releasing a monstrosity like this. And man, if season 2 does end up happening, oh boy, I can't wait for them to butcher Ada Wong as well. Just to... wrap up with this, I'm kind of mentally tired, especially after spending like half an hour earlier recording, only to realize the video was just a black screen. When it comes to ideas for a Resident Evil movie or a show, I feel like there's plenty you could work with and not have it be a complete shit show. Hell, here's an idea. I might be on some copium right now, but I mean, listen to these. So, How about a show in Raccoon City where you see the police officers in there, like Marvin or Rita, you know, officers that we know from the games, but aren't exactly major characters. How about we see those characters responding to, like, you know, early cases of the T-virus infection? Wouldn't that be sick as a show? Or hell, if you wanted to have a show about an offspring of Wesker so bad, just fucking bring in Jake. We have an offspring of Wesker already. And that way, like, you would be taking something from the games, but then everything after that you could make on your own. So it would be completely original material. But I mean, I don't know if I trust Netflix to do any Resident Evil character justice, so... Or hell, imagine a fucking Resident Evil Outbreak show where you just see people, civilians, just trying to survive in Raccoon City during the, you know, the peak of the outbreak, going from one place to another, like the Raccoon University, the streets, the subway. You know, there's a lot to be explored over there. They could be the same survivors from Outbreak, or they could be completely new ones. But yeah, just to wrap up, I think I really had enough talking about this. For whoever's watching, thank you so much for making it this far if you watched most of this. And I want to give a special thanks to my Hannya supporters. You guys encourage me to keep going and make more content. And again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video, whatever that is gonna be. Bye-bye!